after all this waiting, after all this time, thankfully, we can finally say, thank God we're finally getting a reveal day. That was a little poem I wrote for you guys. That would no. You guys are saying no champ today? No, I know this is a ruse. Listen. I know you guys aren't serious about this. They wouldn't actually do that. They wouldn't actually do that. No. There's a champion today. There's a champion. Are you fucking serious? We're 4 days in. We're 4 days in. They haven't given us shit. Okay, new reveals. Reveals are out 5 minutes early. Let's fucking go. Who cares? Okay, Trinket trade. 1 mana, burst, manifest an Otterpus or one of 2 spells from your region that cost 3 or less. Okay, so manifest was a keyword that was shown yesterday. And what manifest means is it creates in hand one of the 3 randomly selected cards, right? So in this case, it'll show you an Otterpus, or it'll show you 2 spells from your regions that cost 3 or less, and you'll pick one. Basically, an Otterpus is this little thing down here. 1 mana, 1/1 attune. When I'm summoned, create a prank in hand. Oh my god. Oh, that's good. Oh no, that's nuts. Oh my god, that's crazy. 1 mana, 1/1 attune. Okay. And of course, the prank is pick one of 2 non-random champions in the enemy's hand or deck and prank it. Oh my god. This just keeps going. I read this card and now I have to read this card. Now I read this card. I don't even know what prank. What the? Prank it? Is this reveal a prank? Are these real cards? What do you mean prank it? Pick one of 2 non-champions cards in the enemy deck and prank it. All right, let's see if there's a new keyword revealed today, because apparently we're adding pranks to this game. We looks like we don't know what pranks do yet, but it looks like it will be on the Twitter in the next minute or 2, and then we'll see exactly what a prank is. God damn it. Until then, shell game. 5 mana, refill your spell mana, give an ally elusive and +1/+1 this round. Wow, dude, these Bandle cards are kind of crazy, and we can see these ones are sort of meant to be like they're sort of like the Fizz, Attune, Bubble Bear, kind of like that like underwater package of Bandle City. This one, I mean, basically give an ally elusive and +1/+1 this round. This is a 5 mana card, but it refills your spell mana, so it's sort of kind of like a 2 mana card total. And when you compare it to like Ghost, it's 1 more mana for a +1/+1. When you compare it to like Sumpworks Map, it's a give instead of a grant for +1/+1. Overall, this one seems kind of limited. The fact that you have to spend the mana up front just to get it back is gonna be clunky. But we'll see if there's some way to use this. I think there's probably better ways to abuse the elusive keywords. All right. Tricksy Tentacles. Oh fuck yeah. 2 mana, fast. Your opponent discards their lowest cost card. Wait, isn't this? Hang on, I think I've seen this before. 2 mana. Opponent discards. Okay. No, sure. No, that's fine. All right. So, I mean, obviously it's a little bit different from Hunt the Weak, since it's the lowest cost card and Hunt the Weak is the weakest follower. I don't know if this is going to be useful. It's going to have some kind of discard synergy for it to be great. Short Tooth. This is a token, not main deckable. Thank God. And it's something that's summoned off of Shark Trainer. So Shark Trainer is a 7/6/6 Yordle, partly Bilgewater. So it's Bandle Bilgewater. You can run it in either region. When allies attack, spend 1 spell mana to summon an attacking Short Tooth. That is cool. I really like seeing this kind of design in the game more. The, like, when X happens, spend spell mana to do X. Like, this is a really, really cool design that I think could be explored a lot more, because it's a good way of being able to balance certain concepts, right? Like, you know, spend spell mana to do a certain thing, right? There's, like, a lot of applications for this. So, in this case, it's a 7 mana 6/6 attune. Of course, it gives you 1 of the mana back, and every time you attack, you're generating 1 of these free Short Tooths. Overall, this card will probably be a little bit too expensive at 7 mana, but it's actually, I mean, it's not as bad as the it's not as awkward as the one from yesterday for the most part, right? Like, it would take like a pretty slow meta for this to make sense. And the fact that you're only getting short tooths on offense is a really, really big deal. I think you can compare this to like Hexvine, Snapvine, Hex something Vine. You know, yeah, it's Hydravine. I don't know why I always call this Hexvine. For some reason in my head it's Hexvine. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. When you compare it to Hydravine, which is like another 7 mana unit, similar stat line, they both summon a unit every turn. The most important thing about Hydravine is that its units can block, and Short Tooth can never block because you're only summoning this on attack, and that's a really, 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 really big deal. The entire point of Hydravine is like having blockers in addition to attackers is big. So for the most part, I think Shark Trainer will probably be a little too expensive, but it's a cool ability. Let's see if there's anything else that summons Short Tooths. So keep in mind how Manifest works is, in this case, it's going to show you 3 random spells from your region that cost 3 or less, and you're going to pick one and add it to your hand, right? So it's very similar to how Invoke works, of course, but in this case, you're not invoking from a specific pool, you're invoking from X pool, right? So it works on a lot of different things. It can, you know, this is effectively Discover from Hearthstone, right? So you're going to basically get a free spell from your regions that cost 3 or less. This card is fucking good. Like, Conchologist is pretty great, right? Like, that's amazing. That seems absolutely nuts. Effectively, you can think about it like a 2-mana 2/2 draw a card. It draws a card immediately, which is huge because when you compare it to Avros and Sentry, Avros and Sentry doesn't draw a card until it dies, which is a really, really different thing because you can't. Sometimes it just takes several turns to die. This one draws a card right away, which is amazing. And the most important thing about the manifest keyword is that, so you might say immediately that, well, if I manifest a card that's not in my deck, the card quality is going to be lower, right? And that makes sense, and it's definitely true. It's a mitigating factor. But the reality of the situation is, when you can look at 3 cards and you can pick which one you want out of those 3, you're going to have really, really good value and really good reactive value, because you can look at the board state and the hand state and the matchup and pick a card based on those factors, which you can't do in the deck builder at all, right? You can't do during drawing because you're drawing random cards. The fact that you have information and control over this is gigantic. Conchologist looks like basically auto include. Now, it's going to depend on which second region you're playing in for sure, because this card will literally function as a different power level card depending on what card pool it's got, right? Like if you're looking for some like Demacia has like a lot of good, pretty cheap spells. Ionia has a lot of good, pretty cheap spells, right? And for the most part, you know, there will be some regions where maybe you wouldn't run Conchologist, but this card looks very, very good to me. Like, super good. I immediately just want to throw this in all my Bandle City decks. For the most part, I actually like this kind of design. It's definitely possible to take it a step too far. I know a lot of people don't like RNG, and I definitely don't like a lot of kinds of RNG, but when it comes to this kind of RNG, I think people have like a sort of a hate boner for RNG. There are certain kinds of RNG that are great, that can increase the skill ceiling instead of decreasing it, right? And that's really, really important. And this is a really cool way of doing that. It challenges you a little bit as a deck builder, but most importantly, you'll have to think about the situation and pick and make a decision on the spot. And that's something that in a lot of cases will actually be a really difficult decision. Conchologist it will actually create some really, really cool and unique situations, and will often do so in a way that like challenges the player. And that's really cool. So I'm a fan of this kind of card, and I'm a fan of this kind of card being a little too good. That being said, like I said, with anything, it is possible to take it too far. There are, with Discover in Hearthstone, which is the same mechanic that is manifest in this game, there are certain kinds of things that might be a little too much, that might be like too polarizing, too high of a range of potential value options, or too obvious what to take. I really like the design of Conchologist because in this case, it's really, really cool. You get to think about like, you know, what you want, right? And there will be spells are inherently reactive. So it's not just like a value game of like, you know, if it manifested a random unit every time, it would be like, oh, which unit do I want? And that's kind of like a lot more simple. This one's really cool. I love this card. Are these the prank effects? The ocean is full of playful tricksters. Bandle City's new spell card Prank lets you take a peek at 2 of your opponent's card and apply a random negative effect to one of them. All right, holy shit. So we don't know the pool of these negative effects. We don't know exactly like the different options you can get, but it's sort of like the opposite of a lucky find, right? It's sort of like taking like the lucky find, the payday, and flipping the concept on its head. You pick a card and get a random negative effect, and you apply it to their hand. Can we look at this left side? This River Shaper is about to get fucking pranked. River Shaper grant -2 power. Like, oh my god. All right. Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's what pranking does. Again, it's going to be hard to evaluate without knowing the pool of different pranks that you could pull, but it'll probably be on a similar level of power as Lucky Find. And it costs 1 mana. That's really interesting. It picks one of 2 non-champion cards in the enemy's hand or deck. So presumably it shows you 2 random cards, and God, we still don't know exactly how this works. It shows us 2 random cards. We don't get to choose their hand. We don't get to look at their hand, but it just shows us 2 random cards that could be from their hand. It could be from the deck, and you prank every copy of it. Like, there's a lot of different ways this could work. Or maybe it shows you, it gives you the option of choosing their hand. It's not going to show you their hand. That would be too broken, right? Toxic as fuck. I love it. Yeah, this is definitely going to be kind of annoying in some cases. Like this. I really like the manifest RNG. The prank RNG might be a little powerful. It might be a little toxic if it's too strong. I expect pranking to be kind of like a weaker tier of mechanic. I don't expect it to be like tier 1 or anything. But yeah, no, this is the kind of thing that if it's too strong could get annoying. But Conchologist is going to be like a super good card like tier 1, and I'm happy about this card being strong. Ava can maybe double the debuffs, possibly if pranks are considered traps, which there's a good chance they are. So Ava Achiever would be able to double up the traps in your deck, which yeah, the pranks on the cards maybe, right? We don't know. All right.
Basically,
so then out of the other prank cards, we've got Otterpus. Otterpus looks really good. Just a 1 mana 1/1 attune I think is really underrated. I don't know if like you're gonna actually use these prank things. So it's possible it'll be discard fodder, who knows. But I was actually recently saying that like Shell Shocker is a pretty underrated card, and there's a lot of metas in a lot of decks. Well, okay, not a lot of decks, but I would run this in like MF Scouts and a lot of meta, and people are sleeping on this card. A 1 mana card with a tune is nice. In this case, I don't know if Prank's going to be good enough to carry it, but it's a really solid body. Kelp Maidens, a 2 mana 2/1 elusive. Nexus Strike could create a prank in hand. I mean, honestly, 2 mana 2/1 elusive. That's all I need to read, baby. That's all I need to read. Woo! God damn it. So for the most part, pranking doesn't need to be nuts, you know. I mean, this is going to generate free pranks. It's a great body on top of that. And then we've got Benemone. Benemone? Benemone. When I'm summoned, create 2 pranks in hand. So this is literally the chump wump. They were like, what if we just took Chungus Wungus, and what if we just made it into a sea anemone? Literally, like, just copying the stats. When I'm summoned, create 2 in hand, and just do the thing. This is a pretty cute card. Honestly, again, I have no idea how good these prank cards are going to be. These ones are super hard to evaluate. We don't even know the pool of pranks. We don't know exactly how it does. He is you guys. Come on. It wasn't enough for you guys saying that I look like Ava Achiever. Now I gotta be Benemone too. All right. So overall, these cards look really sweet. I'm a big fan of Conchologist. In terms of like competitive level, Conchologist is going to be a good card. Trinket trade could be pretty good. I think Manifest is going to be a fairly competitive keyword in general. I mean, I don't know how commonly these manifest cards will be good, but in some cases like Conchologist is very good, and Trinket trade looks like it has some potential. Shell game looks a little bit weak just because spending the mana up front is going to be clunky. Tricksy Tentacles I'm kind of into, but I don't know if, you know, unless there's specific synergy with discarding something in the opponent's hand, this isn't really going to make sense. Shark Trainer is a little too expensive. And yeah, these prank cards actually look solid. Like Kelp Maidens and Otterpus have good stat lines on their own. And at the worst case scenario, this can be solid discard fodder, right? Gay. Like you can combine this with PNZ.
We do a little pranking.
We can combine this with PNZ and just discard these cards, and that can be like really solid if nothing else. Next up, we're going to quickly go over yesterday's reveals, since I didn't do that yesterday for the YouTube video. Yeah, oh yeah, we've got a lot to break down today. So battle bonds, it's a 4-mana Targon, slow, grants 2 allies +2/+2. This is a pretty basic one that I don't think has a lot of real applications in the deck builder. You can't clone this with Taric because Taric only clones things that target a single thing, and this one targets 2 things. It's slow speed, so it's kind of by default pretty clunky. The closest thing this has is you could maybe think about running it in like a Sparklefly all-in deck with Sparklefly Demacia or something similar. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough situations where you're going to want this on 2 allies, and at 4 mana, it's still just kind of not quite worth it in a deck like that. Furious Faefolk, 7 mana, PNZ Bandle, Fae, quick attack. When I'm summoned, if you've dealt damage to the enemy next is 4+ times, grant me impact 4 times. Now that's a 5/4 with quick attack. And keep in mind, impact just means when it strikes during combat, it will deal nexus damage to the opponent's nexus. Or sorry, when it strikes while attacking specifically. So it's sort of similar to leveled up Vi's ability. Basically, it'll be really easy to trigger this condition, so it'll probably grant itself impact 4 times. Therefore, it'll have impact 4, and what that means is when it attacks, even if it gets blocked, the quick attack will keep it alive, and the impact will deal 4 damage to the nexus. Overall, this is probably a little too slow and a little too expensive for 7 mana, so it's not really going to make sense. It's kind of like a super conditional expensive Decimate, and it's going to have a really hard time getting off more than once. But you can also trigger impact using strike cards while you're attacking. So theoretically, using cards like Single Combat and cards like Whirling Death, and hilariously enough, cards like Judgment, technically, if you use these while you're attacking, you are triggering impact, and you are getting impact damage, which is kind of like a meme interaction that can sometimes kill people, but in this case, it's not going to matter much. Owlcat is a token card. You can't main deck this card, but it's summoned by some other cards, such as Babbling Balladeers. So Babbling Balladeers is a 3-mana 2/4 Bandle Yordle. When it's summoned, you create a Owlcat in hand, and the Owlcat is just a 1-mana 2/1 Fae spell shield. That's it. Now it says it's a semi-Ionia card, which I find kind of funny because it's not main deckable. But there definitely might be some interactions with the fact that this is a Bandle Ionia card, right? Or maybe it's just there for flavor. But yeah, you can't main deck this anyway, apparently. It's got free Spell Shield, which is really nice. Spell Shield, as we know, is one of the stronger keywords in the game. In this case, though, there's not really as much you can do with it being attached to like a weak body. You'd have to buff it and then give it another keyword, and that's not really as useful, right? So Babbling Balladeers overall, kind of an awkward stat line. I don't think the 2/4 stat line is ever really going to be great in Runeterra, just as a stat line itself. You know, it's a little too limited for a 3-mana card. There's not really a lot of like 3/2s you want to be shutting down. And oh, it's Ionia for the tree. That's true. Ionia, a Hungry Owlcat is Ionia for the tree. You don't have to like use Lulu anymore if you're just using Owlcat. That's big true. All right, but yeah, Babbling Balladeers is probably not great overall. You might run it in like that tree deck if you're just looking for an Ionia token, but for the most part, yeah, it's not as good. Then we've got Loping Telescope. Loping Telescope is a 2-mana 2/1 manifest a random celestial that costs 3 or less, epic or multi-region follower, and this is a semi-Targon card, so you can run it in Bandle or you can run it in Targon, and it's a Fae on top of that, whatever that means. We still have yet to see a single interaction with the Fae keyword or the Yordle keyword. So to me, I don't know exactly how this card works. When I read it the first time, my initial instinct was that it shows you 3 cards. On the left, you see a celestial that costs 3 or less. In the middle, you see a random epic, and on the right, you see a random multi-region follower. And it'll show you 3 cards. It'll show you those cards of those categories, and you will click which one you want to take and pick it. That's how I think this works, but it's also possible it just like draws from a random pool of there, in which case it would be able to show you 3 epics. It's also possible it gives you a prompt like Scattered Pod. Personally, I think the first would make the most sense. This card's really not bad. I mean, like I said, you compare it to Control-logist, and it's just a 2-mana 2/1 draw card, which is not bad, and it gives you some options. I would say this is probably a lot worse than Control-logist when we're able to make that comparison, but it's still not a bad card, and you might be running it in decks that want manifest or want the fake keyword or are just in Targon, right? Like, this is a card that you could definitely consider depending on how it works. And it's true that like the epic pool is a little bit bad, but when you're seeing it randomly and you have a chance to you have a choice to pick it or not pick it, it's a lot better than like generating a random epic, right? That's exactly how the card works according to Riot on Twitter. Oh, they did confirm that. Okay, so I was right. So it gives you one random celestial that it shows you, one random epic that it shows you, and one multi-region follower that it shows you. So overall, it's not a bad card. I don't know if it'll be making competitive slot-ins. It is not quite as nuts as Conchologist, but who knows? Maybe the fake keyword will have some important implications, and in that case, you could easily look at this card and want to put it in your deck 100%. And then lastly, we've got Bandle Commando, which is just a 2-mana 1/2 Nexus Strike, create a hungry Owlcat in hand, and that's the 1-mana 2/1 Spell Shield Ionia splice from before, and it's just a 2-mana 1/2 elusive. So it's got Nexus Strike. You can kind of compare it to today's card, actually, Kelp Maidens, which is a 2-mana 2/1 elusive. This one Nexus Strikes to create a Prank in hand, and this is a 2-mana 1/2 elusive that Nexus Strikes to create an Owlcat in hand. Honestly, it's not bad. The elusive keyword is always going to be valuable. For the most part, though, I think a 1/2 stat line is just a little bit too weak for what this kind of card is trying to do. And I actually prefer Kelp Maidens, even though I think that the Prank is maybe worth a little bit less than the Hungry Owlcat. The fact that it's a 2/1 is actually really, really nice. Yeah, it's a little bit more vulnerable to death, but you're getting like more average value. A 1/2 is a really awkward stat line to try to get value out of. Now, Sparklefly is, of course, a 2-mana 1/2, but it can get away with it because it has Lifesteal, which is really powerful. And Young Witch is a 2-mana 1/2, and it can also get away with it because it has a super, super powerful support ability. But in this case, if you're playing for an elusive that just wants to, be an elusive and generate a little bit of value on top of that, I would say like Kelp Maidens is probably a better bet than Bandle Commando, right? Like the 1/2 stat line is a much bigger limitation than the 2/1 stat line in the case of a card like this. So overall, Bandle Commando is actually, there's a chance you might run it in like some kind of elusive deck. Or again, you might run it if you just want to trigger Hungry Owlcat for the Bandle tree, right? Because again, it counts as an Ione card, so it'll count as an Ione card for the Bandle tree. But I don't see this hitting like super competitive decks immediately. Out of these cards, the most competitive ones, Conchologist is gonna definitely hit decks like almost no matter what. The Prank cards definitely have some potential, we'll have to see. And the other manifest cards, Trinket Trade and Loping Telescope, have some potential. We're definitely gonna have to see. Lee Sin Fizz tier 0 now. Honestly, there is a lot of synergy with like a lot of new spell synergy coming to this kind of thing. Unfortunately, I mean, you're gonna have to run Bandle there, right? Which I don't know if you can run. I mean, Fizz, I guess you would just run Fizz in Bandle. So it would just be Lee Sin Bandle with Fizz, and you wouldn't run Bilgewater? Huh. I mean, honestly, it actually kind of could be. Like, that's actually pretty plausible. Like, Lee Sin does look like it's got some synergy with, these pranks and with some of the other things. It would really have to wait to see how the rest of Bandle cards play out. Like, I don't think there's a ton right away for that. But if they added a good amount of Lee Sin synergy cards in Bandle, then I could actually see that, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that covers it for the reveals today and yesterday. Super fun. Maybe tomorrow they'll actually give us a champion. We've never been 4 days in without a champion. But I'm actually okay with it because there's a lot of interesting cards and interesting mechanics we're seeing here. Overall, not sure how I feel about pranking. But manifest is a mechanic that I really like. In my current opinion, and we'll see if I might be wrong about this, I think people will be complaining about like the amount of RNG that's coming to this game. I'm expecting to see Reddit posts literally like probably later today already about it. Overall, I would say that it comes down to a lot of factors, those being like how the RNG is implemented, what power level the RNG is at, and how commonly it's applied to these cards. For the most part, I really like Manifest. I think Manifest is a great ability that's really healthy kind of RNG that skill tests in a lot of good ways. Super good, and I'm happy with it. Pranks, I don't know how strong they're going to be. If pranks are too strong, then that might be a little bit annoying. But like I said, it comes down to power levels, right? Like having sort of like semi-frustrating kinds of RNG that are kind of like fun for one player but maybe not fun for the other is the kind of thing that is totally fine to have at like lower power levels or less frequencies in the game, right? And these are the kind of thing that a lot of players do like the ability to do, but it could get toxic if it's like a little too much. Again, game design is all about, and this is a lot of things in life, but it's all about just like controlling the dosage, right? Like certain things are gonna feel bad at certain amounts, right? Nothing is healthy or unhealthy. It just comes down to controlling the frequency and controlling the power level. And in this case, I would point personally to manifest as like good forms of RNG. Pranks are totally fine, but if they're too strong, then that would be, in my opinion, a bad form of RNG. And that's pretty much it. That's the like. I just wanted to get that out now because I'm sure people will be talking about it over the next few weeks because everyone loves to talk about RNG whenever RNG comes out. All right, but yeah, that's it for today's reveals. What do you guys think? Any cool interactions that I didn't see here? I mean, this was just initial impressions.